Today, I want to speak to you about something that is not only possible, but is about to become your reality, a miracle from God. God's timing is perfect, and it is one of the most profound aspects of his divine nature. Unlike human understanding, where we measure time in minutes, hours, and days, God operates outside the limitations of time. To God, there is no past, no future, only an eternal present. His plan for your life has already been set in motion, and every moment you experience has been woven into his perfect design. We often feel impatient, anxious, or frustrated when things don't happen according to our own schedules. We may think we're ready for something, only to find that it hasn't yet come to pass. But God's timing is never early and never late. It is always exactly when we need it most. What may seem like a delay or an unanswered prayer is, in reality, God's preparation for something greater. He sees the bigger picture while we see only fragments. In times of waiting, we are often being molded and shaped for what is to come. God uses the waiting season to strengthen our faith, refine our character, and prepare us for the miracle that is on its way. When we trust in his timing, we are acknowledging that he knows what is best for us, even when we don't understand the process. The timing of God is not about convenience or getting what we want when we want it. It's about trust, surrender, and knowing that he is working everything together for our good. When the moment arrives, it will be the right moment, the time when all the pieces fall into place, when the circumstances are perfect for his will to be revealed. It is in this precise moment that we will see the hand of God at work, and we will recognize that his timing was exactly what we needed. You are positioned for a miracle, and this truth is not by accident or coincidence. Every step, every experience, every challenge you faced in your life has been part of a divine preparation, leading you to this moment. It may not always feel like it, especially when you're in the midst of struggles or uncertainty, but God has been orchestrating your path long before you even knew it. The circumstances you're in today are not by chance. Even the seemingly mundane moments, the detours, the hardships, and the waiting periods are part of the process that positions you for God's miraculous intervention. When you look back on your life, you may see that you have been directed, even through tough times, to be exactly where you are now, poised for something extraordinary. God doesn't waste time, and he doesn't waste experiences. Every moment has been a lesson, every trial a preparation, and every triumph a signpost pointing to the miracle that is unfolding in your life. Even when you couldn't see it, he was aligning the people, the opportunities, and the events to bring you to the place where you are ready to receive your breakthrough. Right now, you may not fully understand how everything fits together, but trust this: God's plan is perfect. The relationships you have, the skills you've developed, and even the struggles you've overcome have all positioned you to step into the fullness of God's promise for your life. You are not lost, nor are you unprepared. You are exactly where you need to be. When the time comes for your miracle, you'll realize that it wasn't a random event. It was the culmination of God's purpose and your readiness built up over time. Every step has been leading to this moment, where God will reveal his power in ways you never thought possible. You are not waiting on something to happen. You are in the perfect position for God to act. Your miracle is not just a possibility, it is imminent, and you are positioned to receive it. Miracles start with faith, and this is the foundation upon which everything that seems impossible becomes possible. Faith is the key that unlocks the door to God's supernatural power. It's the willingness to believe in what you cannot see, the courage to hold on to hope, even when your circumstances suggest otherwise. Without faith, a miracle remains just a distant thought, a possibility that never becomes reality. Faith moves God. It attracts his attention. It positions you to receive his grace, his provision, and his intervention in ways that go beyond human understanding. When you step out in faith, you are acknowledging that you trust God more than you trust what you can see, more than you trust what the world tells you is possible. Faith doesn't ask for evidence first, it believes before the evidence appears. It's the confidence that God is who he says he is, and that he will do what he has promised to do, even if the way is not clear to us. Faith is not simply belief in the existence of God. It is trust in His ability to act on our behalf. It is knowing that despite the challenges you may face, God is bigger, greater, and more capable of bringing about a miracle than any obstacle or difficulty you could encounter. It is in this trusting, confident belief that the seed for a miracle is planted. The Bible tells us that if we have faith, even as small as a mustard seed, we can move mountains. This shows us that the size of our faith is not as important as the direction in which it is placed. Faith in God is what makes the impossible possible. Faith also requires action. It's not just about believing in our hearts. It's about acting in alignment with that belief. When God speaks, when He gives us a vision, we are called to move in faith, to step into the unknown with the trust that He is already there, working ahead of us. Just as Peter stepped out of the boat in faith and walked on water toward Jesus, we too are called to step out, trusting that God will meet us where we are and do the impossible through us. Miracles don't begin with the event itself. They begin with the seed of faith that grows within us. Faith prepares the ground for the miracle to take root. It strengthens our hearts to receive, and it opens our spirits to the supernatural. Without faith, miracles are just dreams, possibilities that never materialize. But with faith, we tap into the very essence of God's power. And in doing so, we create the space for miracles to unfold before us. Your current circumstances do not define your future. Too often, we allow the challenges and limitations of today to shape our expectations of tomorrow. The struggles you face right now, whether it's financial difficulty, health issues, relational conflicts, or emotional burdens, are not the final word on where you are headed. They are merely temporary situations that do not have the power to dictate your destiny. Just because things are difficult today does not mean that tomorrow will be the same. Circumstances can change, and God's plan for your life is not confined to the present moment. In fact, the greater the challenges you face today, the more room there is for God's power to manifest in your life tomorrow. What you are experiencing now is a moment on the journey, not the destination. And God is not limited by your current reality. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that your present struggles are the best you can ever hope for, especially when it feels like there is no way out. But remember, God specializes in turning situations around. He is in the business of making the impossible possible. Your future is not a reflection of your past or current circumstances. It is a reflection of the divine plan and purpose God has for you. When you align yourself with that purpose, you begin to see beyond the limitations of today. Your life is like a book, and your circumstances are merely a chapter, not the entire story. Every chapter has its purpose. Some chapters may be filled with joy and triumph, while others may bring trials and difficulties. But the story isn't over until God says it's over. The future that God has for you is far greater than what you may see today. What you are going through is not who you are. It does not define you, and it will not determine your outcome. What defines your future is the purpose and calling that God has placed on your life. His plans for you are filled with hope, success, and the fulfillment of your true potential. No matter where you are right now, God is still working on you. He is still preparing you for something greater. Your future is not determined by what you can see with your eyes, but by the promises that are written in the eternal plan God has set for you. Keep your eyes on the future, not on the present. Keep your heart anchored in the hope of what's to come, not in the reality of what is. Your circumstances may have shaped who you are today, but they do not have the power to dictate where you're going. Trust that the best is yet to come, and that your future holds things far beyond what you can imagine or dream. You are not defined by where you are now, but by where you are headed. Keep moving forward, for your future is bright, and the possibilities are endless. God works beyond your understanding, and this is one of the most awe-inspiring aspects of His nature. As humans, we are limited by what we can see, what we can touch, and what we can comprehend. Our minds are finite, and our perception of reality is confined by the boundaries of time, space, and circumstances. But God is not bound by these limitations. He is infinite, eternal, and His ways are far beyond what we can grasp. When we look at the world around us, we only see a fraction of the bigger picture. We see what is before us, what is happening in the present moment, and we try to make sense of it based on our own understanding. But God sees it all, past, present, and future. He knows the end from the beginning, and he operates from a place of complete wisdom and perfect knowledge. What may seem like a setback to us may be the very thing he uses to propel us forward into something far greater than we could imagine. God doesn't operate by human reasoning or by the limitations of what is possible. He specializes in doing the impossible. He can take what seems like a hopeless situation and turn it into a testimony of his power. When we try to fit God into our understanding, we reduce him to something manageable, something we can control, but God is so much bigger than that. He doesn't need our understanding to work in our lives. He only needs our faith and obedience. Think of the many times in Scripture where God worked in ways that defied human logic. He parted the Red Sea for the Israelites to walk through, defying nature itself. He made the walls of Jericho fall with nothing more than the sound of trumpets. He healed the blind, raised the dead, and made the lame walk, all of which were beyond the understanding of the people around him. Yet, in each of these instances, God was simply revealing a glimpse of his limitless power and wisdom. In our own lives, there are times when we cannot see the full plan. We don't understand why we face certain challenges, why doors close, or why things seem delayed. But God works beyond our understanding. Even when we don't have the answers, he does. And he is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events, arranging people, and positioning us in ways that align with his perfect will. In addition, action is often tied to the pursuit of the promise. It's not just a passive belief in God's ability to perform a miracle, but an active pursuit of what he has spoken. When we believe God for healing, we don't just sit back and wait. We take action by praying, seeking medical help, following through with the necessary treatments, and continuing to walk in faith that God is working through all of it. When we believe for restoration in relationships, we don't simply wait for things to change. We take steps to forgive, to reconcile, and to show love, even when it feels difficult. The action required for a miracle also involves surrender and obedience. It's not just about doing something because we think it will make God act. It's about trusting his plan and obeying his instructions, even when we don't understand the reasoning behind them. God's ways are often beyond our comprehension, and his timing is not always in sync with our expectations. But when we act in obedience to his voice, we position ourselves to receive his best for our lives. True miracles require us to act on what we believe, even in the face of uncertainty. It's easy to say we trust God, but true trust is demonstrated through action. The miracle does not come because of our action alone, but because God sees our faith in action. When we combine our faith with obedience, we make way for God to move in ways that we couldn't have imagined. The miracle is not just in the waiting, it's in the willing to act, to move forward in faith, and to respond to God's call. God's power can transform your situation in ways that go far beyond human understanding. When you are faced with challenges that seem insurmountable, when your circumstances appear hopeless or beyond repair, it is important to remember that there is no situation too difficult for God to change. His power is not limited by what we see, feel, or understand. In fact, it is in our moments of greatest need that God's transformative power shines the brightest, bringing about change that we could never accomplish on our own. God's power is not bound by the natural laws of the world. He is not restricted by time, space, or human limitations. What seems impossible in the natural realm is merely an opportunity for God to demonstrate his sovereignty and might. Whether it's a health crisis, a financial struggle, a broken relationship, or a deep personal despair, God has the ability to reach into the situation and shift it in a way that reflects his divine will and purpose. His power operates on a level that far exceeds our comprehension, and when he decides to intervene, nothing is impossible. In the Bible, we see countless examples of God's transformative power at work. He turned water into wine at a wedding in Cana, providing a solution when there was no other way. He healed the sick, raised the dead, and cast out demons with a mere word. He delivered the Israelites from slavery in Egypt and parted the Red Sea to make a way where there was no way. These miraculous acts were not just demonstrations of power for power's sake. They were displays of God's ability to change situations that seemed utterly hopeless. Similarly, God's power can bring transformation to your life. When you are facing a situation that feels like a dead end, remember that God is not bound by your circumstances. What seems impossible to us is an opportunity for Him to show His glory and His ability to work beyond the limitations of our understanding. He is able to turn what appears to be a setback into a setup for a miracle. What seems to be a closed door can be opened by the one who holds the keys to all of heaven and earth. In your personal struggles, God's power can bring healing to the most broken parts of your life. Whether it's physical healing, emotional restoration, or healing in relationships, His transformative power can reach into the deepest wounds and bring wholeness. His power doesn't just address the surface issues, it goes deeper, transforming you from the inside out. Through His power, He can change not only your circumstances, but your heart, your mindset, and your perspective. Sometimes the transformation we seek begins not with a change in our environment, but with a change in our hearts. God's power has the ability to shift our understanding, align our thoughts with His will, and give us peace in the midst of chaos. He can transform our fears into faith, our doubts into confidence, and our despair into hope. When God begins to work in our lives, it is not only our external situation that changes, it is our internal world that is transformed as well. God's power is not just about solving problems, it is about bringing about a total transformation, making things new and restoring them to their original purpose. He can take the broken, the lost, and the damaged and renew them, just as He renews the earth every spring. When God transforms a situation, He doesn't just make it better, He makes it whole. He doesn't just improve your life, He makes all things new. His power is also able to change the trajectory of your future. What may seem like a hopeless situation today can be the catalyst for a brighter tomorrow when God intervenes. His power can bring you to a place of purpose and fulfillment that you never thought possible. He can open doors that were previously closed, bring new opportunities that seemed out of reach, and position you in places of influence and favor. When we are overwhelmed by our circumstances, it is easy to forget that God is greater than anything we face. But the truth is, His power is greater than every obstacle, every challenge, and every trial. His ability to transform your situation is not just a theoretical idea. It is a living, active force that is available to you right now. By tapping into His power through faith, prayer, and obedience, you open the door for Him to move in your life in ways that will not only transform your situation, but also testify to His greatness. You have been equipped for the miracle, and this truth is vital to understanding how God works in your life. God, in His infinite wisdom and love, has not left you unprepared for the breakthroughs and transformations He desires to bring. From the moment He conceived the plan for your life, He has been equipping you with everything you need to walk into the miraculous. Whether you realize it or not, every experience, every challenge, and every season you have walked through has been part of your divine preparation. God doesn't send you into battles without the tools necessary to overcome. He doesn't call you to an impossible task without first equipping you with what you need to see it through. When you face difficulties, they may seem overwhelming, but in reality, they are the very things that build in you the resilience, faith, and strength to receive the miracle that is ahead. The challenges you are facing are not indications that you are unequipped, rather, they are opportunities to see the equipping power of God at work in you. The Bible tells us that God has given us everything we need for life and godliness. He has already placed inside of you the seeds of the miracle you are praying for. That seed might be in the form of talents, gifts, perseverance, faith, or wisdom. You may not always see it at first, but every part of your life, every lesson learned, and every moment of growth has been part of the equipping process. God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. When God speaks a promise over your life, He doesn't leave you to figure out how to make it happen on your own. He gives you the resources, the strength, and the wisdom necessary to see that promise fulfilled. You are not lacking anything that is needed for the miracle. If God has placed a vision in your heart, He has already given you the tools to bring it to life. The miracle is not about what you don't have. It's about recognizing and stepping into what you already possess. Sometimes it's easy to doubt your ability to handle the miracle that God has in store for you. You might feel inadequate, unprepared, or even undeserving. But that's the beauty of God's equipping power. It doesn't depend on your own abilities, but on His grace. The very fact that you are facing a difficult situation means that God has already equipped you with what you need to overcome it. It is in the process of stepping forward in faith, trusting in God's equipping, that you begin to see His power work through you. Think of the people in the Bible who were chosen to accomplish great things. Moses was equipped with a staff to part the Red Sea. David was equipped with a sling and 5 smooth stones to defeat Goliath. Esther was equipped with beauty, courage, and influence to save her people. Each of them had doubts and fears, but each of them also had the tools they needed to accomplish the miracle God had ordained for them. They didn't need to look elsewhere for strength or ability. They simply needed to trust that God had already placed within them what they needed for the task ahead. You too have been equipped. God has placed in you everything necessary for the miracle you are believing for. This might include the relationships, experiences, and opportunities that will come together at just the right time. It may include the faith, persistence, and wisdom that you have been developing in the quiet moments when it seemed like nothing was happening. It may even include the circumstances you are currently facing, which are refining and preparing you for the greater things to come. In fact, sometimes the equipping comes in the form of the very challenges you wish you could avoid. God uses those challenges to strengthen you, build your character, and increase your capacity for the miracle He is bringing into your life. Every season you walk through, no matter how difficult, is part of your divine preparation for what lies ahead. You may not understand it now, but in hindsight, you will see how God used every moment to equip you for His greater purpose. When you begin to understand that you're already equipped, you can walk in confidence, knowing that you are not alone in this journey. The miracle is not something you are waiting for in the future. It is something that is already in motion, and you have been prepared for it. Every step you take in faith, every act of obedience, and every moment of surrender is you using the very tools that God has placed within you. Trust that you have everything you need for the miracle to manifest, and step forward in faith, knowing that you are fully equipped to receive it. The miracle is already in motion. And this powerful truth can shift your perspective when you find yourself in moments of uncertainty or waiting. Too often, we think of miracles as something that will happen in the future, something that we have to wait for or hope will come to pass. But the reality is that the miracle you are believing for is not something distant. It's already in motion. It's already beginning to unfold, even if you can't see the evidence of it yet. God works in ways that go beyond our understanding, and His timing is always perfect. The moment He speaks a word over your life, the miracle begins to take shape. Even when it seems like nothing is happening, behind the scenes, God is orchestrating events, aligning people, and positioning you for the breakthrough you've been waiting for. What may appear to be delays or detours are actually part of God's plan to prepare you for what He is about to do. Think of a seed planted in the ground. You can't see the growth happening beneath the surface, but that seed is already beginning to sprout, sending roots deep into the soil and reaching toward the light. The miracle is in motion, even though it's not visible to the naked eye. Similarly, in your life, even when you don't see the immediate results, God is working beneath the surface to bring about what He has promised. His power is already at work in your situation, moving things into place according to His divine plan. This process of God's work being in motion doesn't always look the way we expect. There may be moments where it seems like things are getting worse before they get better. You may feel like you're taking 2 steps backward for every step forward. But remember, God is never idle. Even in the moments of struggle, He is working in ways that you cannot yet perceive. The setbacks you face may just be the building blocks for the miracle that is about to manifest. The challenges you encounter are part of the greater plan He is unfolding, preparing you for the fullness of what is to come. Sometimes the miracle is happening in the spiritual realm before it ever manifests in the physical realm. God is not limited by time and space, and His ways are far beyond our comprehension. When you pray, when you believe, when you trust in His promises, you are setting in motion the forces of heaven. Things are shifting in the unseen world, even before you see the physical evidence. The miracle is already in motion, working in ways that might be invisible to you now, but in God's perfect time, it will become evident. I think of the Israelites as they were crossing the Red Sea. When they stood at the edge of the water, they couldn't see how they were going to make it through. It looked impossible. But as soon as Moses raised his staff, God began the process of parting the sea, and the miracle was already in motion, even though it took some time for the waters to divide and make a path. While they couldn't see it at first, God was already moving the waters on their behalf. The same is true for you. Even when you don't see immediate results, know that God is moving behind the scenes. Every prayer you've prayed, every step of faith you've taken is activating the miracle. Your faith in the waiting, your trust in the process is part of what keeps the miracle in motion. It may take time for the fullness of the miracle to be revealed, but don't be discouraged. Every moment of uncertainty is an opportunity for God to work in ways that are beyond your understanding. Your job is to remain faithful, to keep trusting, and to keep believing that the miracle is already in motion. You don't have to wait until you see the evidence to know that God is working. His power is at work, moving things into place and setting up the perfect conditions for the breakthrough that is coming. Trust that everything is moving according to God's timing, and when the moment is right, the manifestation of the miracle will come. Sometimes the miracle is in the process itself. The journey of waiting, trusting, and persevering is part of God's work in you. It's in those moments that your character is being shaped, your faith is being tested, and your heart is being prepared to receive the fullness of what God has in store. The miracle is not just in the destination, but in the process that leads to it. Rest assured that the miracle is not delayed. It's already in motion, and it will come to pass in God's perfect timing. Trust in His faithfulness and continue to stand firm in the belief that God is working, even when you can't see it yet. The miracle you've been waiting for is already on its way, and everything is being aligned for the manifestation of that breakthrough. In conclusion, the miracle you are believing for is not something far off in the future, but something that is already in motion. God has been working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail, positioning you for your breakthrough, and equipping you with everything you need to walk into the fullness of His promises. Even when you can't see it, trust that God is at work, moving things in your favor and preparing the way for the manifestation of the miraculous. Remember, the miracle begins with your faith, and as you continue to trust, take action, and remain steadfast in your belief, you are actively participating in the unfolding of what God has already planned for you. Your circumstances do not dictate the power of God, and His timing is always perfect. Know that you are equipped for the miracle, and everything you have experienced, both the victories and the struggles, have been part of God's preparation for the great things ahead. Stay faithful in the waiting, and do not lose heart. The miracle is already in motion, and it is on its way to you. Continue to walk in faith, for God is faithful, and His power to transform your situation is greater than any challenge you face. Trust that what He has begun, He will bring to completion. The miracle is yours. It's already in motion, and it is coming to pass.